We are here, we make change to your life in every way. We expand on your mind, so you're never the same. In your health, in your wealth, in your body and soul. Pushing you to live life completely whole, so you grow and achieve all this purpose to be. We expect nothing less, no more mediocrity. We are greatest. 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 We are greatest.
Hey guys, Dexter and Tonya Scott here. We're going to talk to you today about faith and finances. You know, faith and finances, they work interchangeably, right? Faith is the foundation in which all businesses grow. We're going to talk to you about that.
It's going to be an exciting day. There's so much that we want to share, primarily because we had to go through this. You know, we had to get ourselves together because we hit up our own bump in the road, and we've actually hit it twice. So what do we do?
It's what happens, right?
So
the question is, you know, Tonya and I, as the upgraders, being challenged with faith and finances. I'll tell you, one of the idioms that goes on basically in the faith world is that you can't make money, right? You can't be prosperous. There's something wrong with walking in prosperity, and we just don't believe that. You know, we believe that the more prosperous you are, then the more you can exercise your faith in doing some of the things that you do, like giving back to charities or any organizations, your church, any place that you want to help grow. You have to be able to have the faith in order to prosper. And we think that's the foundation, again, of all success.
Awesome.
Yeah. Now, I recently spoke at a conference right here in Rocky Mount, North Carolina, which is eastern North Carolina on the East Coast. And you know, I talked about poverty idioms. You remember me sharing that with you? You know, poverty in the idioms. A few of those is, you know, you see somebody you haven't seen in a while, and they say, I'm just barely keeping my head above water, right? I'm barely getting by. You know, when it rains, it pours. All of these things contribute to having a poverty mindset.
Absolutely.
You know, and we just, you know, we are, the upgraders, we are destroying those things. That's why we say that we may not know you, but we know what's in you. You know, we don't know you, but we know that you are supposed to be walking in a prosperous place.
This particular topic is really sensitive for me because I actually stepped away from it. In each and every one of us, there's an ability that we have. And, you know, the Word of God itself talks about where he says he has given all of us the ability to create wealth. Well, giving all of us the ability to do something, but then we make a decision that we're not going to do it. I mean, does that make any sense to you? When you really think about it, it doesn't. But that's where I was. Because, see, in me, there was this gift for business, to be an entrepreneur, but I kept resisting it. I tried to step away from it, and I did that over and over again. Why? I felt like I was in love with money. I felt like to do that must mean that I love money. Why? What do we hear? That the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, that's the word. So that's truth, right? The love of money is the root of all evil. But money itself isn't evil. It is necessary. It's a need. It's created. Any and all things that have been created comes from a creator. This very world that we live in is because of all of us, all things being created. And I'll say to you, I've said it many times over, the enemy can create nothing. So the money that we're going to talk about on today, finances that we're going to be talking about, I mean, think about that. It's a creation. There is purpose for it. There is need of it. It's up to us to make sure that our relationship with it is in order. See, money is to serve you. You're not to serve money. And a lot of times when you don't have it, guess who's in control if you allow it to be? Why? It's always on your mind.
Always.
You're thinking about it, wondering where it's going to come from. You're not feeling good at all. You're worried. You're anxious. Who's in control?
Yeah.
So this right here today, we're going to get some stuff in order, but it's very sensitive for me because I literally ran away from making money, and I put our family and our household in a situation where things were tight because I wouldn't advance as much as you were trying to get me to.
Yeah. So one of the things, Tonya and I, we do all kinds of personal development. We travel to Chicago a lot and spend time with our mentors. We had an opportunity to speak on stage with Kevin Harrington and Forbes Riley, the infomercial queen, billionaire queen. And when you're around these kinds of people, it changes your mindset. There's a quote that says you are the average of the 5 people that you spend the most time with. And I think that, as we talk about faith and finances, as we talk about the mindset that goes along with having faith, having finances, it all begins with who you are around, who's pouring information into you, who's pouring the knowledge into you that you need in order to grow. And Tonya and I, again, personal development is key.
Yes.
Because we study a lot, we read a lot, we place ourselves in environments that we can grow. So how do you outgrow your finances? I'll tell you, mindset. Where the mind goes, the energy flows. What you focus on the longest becomes the strongest. See, we always wonder why people can drop out of high school, don't even go to college, and end up becoming extremely wealthy. Well, it's because of what they place in their mind.
Wow.
And see, the system can't put that information in your mind. You have to go get it, right? And I'm telling you, once you start stirring around in your mind, once you start learning different things, once you start thinking, I used to say outside of the box, then I heard our mentor say there is no box.
Yeah.
There isn't a box. So once you begin to think on another level, then you begin to believe, right? That belief system. You begin to believe and you begin to act in faith. So we just tear down that systematic thinking of believing you've got to have a systemized knowledge of in order to be successful. That just doesn't exist in our world anymore.
In life, we have to have a paradigm shift. Here we are, we're born, we begin to live, we learn so many things. And for many of us, the things that we've learned throughout our lives, it causes us to feel like, we don't deserve it.
Right.
It makes us feel like it's something that we shouldn't have based on whatever it is that you've learned. And let me tell you, we're from North Carolina. Many of you can hear us talk right now and hear the twang, okay? So we're talking about being in the southern part of the country, the southeast side at that. But here we are. And you're talking about growing up Baptist, below the Mason-Dixon line, okay? And you're talking about the things that you hear as you grow up. Well, I've had to unlearn some things. This is what we call a paradigm shift. Yeah. There are things that you learn. Now it's time to unlearn them. And that's where growth will happen. And learning is something that we have to do for the remainder of our lives. Yeah. And it's so necessary. So this is something that Tonya finally began to do. See, I was trying to fit in all the things that I learned. I'm like, well, since I've learned it, it must be right. Is that really true? I can teach you something right now and it not be right at all. You always have to evaluate what's happening in your life. You have to think about what's going on. How do you feel about that? Are you where you want to be? Is there something inside of you burning, itching that you want to do? Well, what is that? Are you advancing toward it? If not, why not? So what's causing you to not do or even live the life that you desire to live? And I'm not even just talking about material things. I'm talking about your being. I'm talking about your state of mind. I'm talking about the joy. I'm talking about happiness. Things like that, where you can't wait to get up in the morning just to get started with your day again, to look forward to it. How is that for you? See, can I share with you? Can I talk to you just a little bit? I had a spirit of suicide to come upon me. And I didn't want to go I didn't want to. Sometimes people say I didn't want to wake up. I didn't want to go to bed that night because I didn't want to have to wake up the next day. But I just didn't feel like going to bed to get started all over again with a life that I didn't want to live. But I wasn't telling myself I don't want to get up. I was telling myself I don't want to go to bed because I knew I had to get up. That's kind of crazy, isn't it? But that's where I was. So I really had to come to a place of releasing that to really step into who it is that I am and to begin to do the things that's within me to do. That's what unlocked my faith. That's when things for me really begin to change because I begin to believe in myself. I begin to talk about and really receive who it is that I am and come to understand that this was purposeful, that it was divine, and that it was necessary. So we want to really encourage you today. We want you to think, because a lot of times people don't move, especially as it relates to finances, when you feel like it's something that's operating against the very nature of who you are. And I'm talking even specifically to those of us who are men and women of God. And if anybody has ever made you feel like, or at any time you feel like that if you're actually advancing toward your life's dreams and ambitions and it's actually causing you to be fruitful in your finances, then we have the tendency to push it away and to resist it. And we want to encourage you not to let that happen. It's purposeful and there's a need for it.
The lack of faith, we think that what it will do to your finances is that you will remain in mediocrity. Because, if you don't exercise your faith, then how do you know what you can do? I was telling Tonya earlier, there was a story that I was reading. Yeah, and it was about a gentleman that was walking on a tightrope across the Grand Canyon. So he walked across the Grand Canyon, and when he got to the side where all the people were, the crowd was, he said, "Let me ask you guys a question. Do you believe that I can walk across the Grand Canyon on this tightrope?" They said, "Absolutely." Right? He said, "Okay." So he walked back across the Grand Canyon again. This time, he had someone on his shoulders. And he went back to the crowd and he said, "Do you believe that I can walk across the Grand Canyon with somebody on my shoulders?" And they said, "Absolutely. We believe that you can." He said, "Okay. Well, which one of you are going to be the next person to get on my shoulders so that we can walk back across the Grand Canyon?" And they got quiet, right? See, that's the difference between belief and faith. Faith is action. You have to act. You talked about those gifts. Yeah. You have to act on your gifts. I heard Dr. Dennis Kimbrough. He said one time, if you don't know what you're good at, ask 5 trusted people that you trust now. Ask them, what do you see me doing? What do you see me come alive when I talk about it? And then after you get those 5 people to let you know, you should see a common thread in those 5 answers. If you don't, ask another 5. But you're going to get a common thread in what people see about you. And then you can begin to attach what your gift is, right? Then once you identify the gift, then you put it into action, right? That's faith.
Yes, I absolutely love that story. And what comes to mind, and we all hear it, you probably even said it before, that faith without works is dead. And I always like sharing with people how as I continue to read, and then I see, but I will show you my faith by my works. That's exactly what that story says to us. It shows us our faith by what it is that we do. It is absolutely amazing. It's action. Faith is action. You're able to demonstrate what it is that you're believing for. What you're believing for, you demonstrate it by taking action. And that's faith. And without faith, it is impossible.
You can't
to please God. Do you see how all of that ties in together?
It marries very well together.
It marries very well together. It is what it is. That's the type of life that we have to live. So if you're talking about your finances, you're talking about faith, this is what it requires, okay? For you to believe it, but if you really want to believe it, you have to have faith. And in order for you to really show that faith, you must take action. And that, like you said, is the foundation of it all.
It is. You said that. It makes me think of a quote by Henry David Thoreau. Now, Henry David Thoreau said, when you advance confidently,
I love it,
in the direction of your dream, and you endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, you will meet with a success that is unexpected in common hours. And that word confidently is faith. When you advance confidently, when you advance with faith in the direction of your dreams and endeavor to live the life that you have imagined, you will meet with a success that is unexpected in common hours. It's the action that you're taking that's going to get you closer to the success that you believe you're going to have. Radical faith versus business knowledge. I've heard it say you measure twice, cut once. See, that's a strategy. Measure twice, cut once. So you're measuring and you're measuring. In business, you have to measure your return on investment. Tonya and I have made a lot of mistakes. We've done some things that when we look back, we said, wow, we didn't quite measure that properly or accurately. So when you talk about radical faith, you can believe something's going to happen. But then I believe that's why God gives us the knowledge of research and the knowledge of belief, to actually look at things and say, okay, does that make sense? So we can have all the faith in the world, but we must have, just a basic knowledge of understanding. Does this make sense in business? Because, we've lost money. Hey, it's a part of the process. And that's a whole nother conversation talking about process, because we talked about that earlier. But, process, it's all a part of the process. You've got to measure twice, cut once, measure, measure, measure. But then, I believe that even in the measuring piece, our relationship and our faith, God can say, okay, you can, as long as we're listening, He can say, stop the measuring. Do it. And we just do it. We, as Les Brown says, we leap and grow our wings on the way down.
Yes. Yeah. And I think we have to really pay attention to intuition, instinct. These are things that we have that's just kind of, what even just came to mind, bottled up. These are things that are bottled up inside of us. Again, being a created being, we have a creator. And there's conversations that we really have. There's the instinct that you have is like a ding, a little tap right there. There's the intuition like, hey, and you like, I'm really feeling and sensing something. And sometimes we don't know what to do with it. But that's a part of leap and grow your wings on the way down. You don't know everything. We won't always understand and know exactly what will happen, but you kind of get a glimpse and you have a little bit of a vision as to what it could possibly be. And then that's what you're believing for, and you advance toward it. And if I happen to get it wrong, guess what's going to happen? Growth. There's things that you're going to come to know and understand just by going through the process. And that's so important, and it's a part of what needs to happen. It's necessary. It needs to happen in order for us to really grow and advance in the way that the Lord really desires for us to do. So I wonder how many people, as you watch this, can really relate to me. Because if you're anything like me, and I can be kind of black and white. If you say do this, I'm like, I need to do that. But then if you say do that, I'm like, well, I need to do that. And then you feel like I'm so confused. I don't know what to do. Do I just look at this and make a business decision? Or do I need to just come over here and really be led and, led by God? What do I do? And sometimes that'll bring you to a place of standstill. Where you don't do anything because of confusion. And that's why I really want to impress upon you that instinct. The intuition, that thing that you may sense and feel. Don't discount that. But at the same time, there's wisdom. They both really come and play together. And you will really know. You will know within yourself if it's necessary for you to take a step back for a minute and really listen and wait. And you will know if you're really feeling like, I think this is good. But if anything ever gives you pause, then pay attention to it. But if not, just continue to advance. Because I'm going to tell you again, with that personality type, I'm going to tell you, I'm the type of person with that personality type that would end up really doing nothing because you're waiting so long. I'm a thinker. I'm a processor. I got to see. I got to figure this thing out, and I won't necessarily advance. You look up 6 months later, and your situation is still the same, and you keep praying for the answer, and the answer has come, but you're not responding to it. So I just want you to really understand and know that your faith in it is the belief, and you show that again by taking action. And as you go through the process, you have to have faith Okay? And knowing that if you need to stop or be pulled back, he's going to do that for you too. There's three types of people as we talk about money. Let's say money here. A poverty mindset has the tendency to always talk about money. They're always thinking about money. That's people in poverty, the poverty mindset. Rich people. Rich people has the tendency to talk a lot about things. They talk about what they have. They talk about the material things. But wealthy people, when you get around them, their conversation, ideas. Their mind is always thinking about the next thing. What can I do? How can I solve this problem? See, that's what business is. Businesses solve problems. Mm-hmm. Do you need gas? Who's going to solve that problem for you? The gas station. Is that a business? You're hungry? Who's going to solve that problem for you? A drive-through? A sit-in restaurant? The grocery store? A business. You need your nails done. Who's going to solve that problem for you? All businesses they're problem solvers. What problem can you solve? What can you do? What's in you? What can you be a part of to help somebody else? That's life. So again, as we talk about how, there are things for all of us to do and the ability that we've all been given to be wealth creators, why would we shy away from the very thing that we've been created to do? It's innate. It's a part of all of us. And I'm going to tell you something else that a lot of people mess up on. And this was me. Okay? Because you look and you see what someone else is doing and you're thinking, well, they're already doing it, so it must not be for me. Really? Now, why is it that there are several McDonald's in the same city? Mm-hmm. Oh, there's only one you a landscaper? Oh, so that must mean that I don't need to be one. Really? One of the things that you really have to understand, and the things that we've learned with a growth mindset and one where there's a wealth mindset, is there's enough out here for everybody. There's never a time where you can't, if that's your desire and what's your purpose to do. You advance toward it, and I'm telling you, doors will open and you'll be able to walk through each and every one because your focus is going to be different and upon that thing.
Yeah, that's good, Tonya. I was just thinking about a quote that says that optimist sees an opportunity in every calamity. A pessimist sees a calamity in every opportunity. So with everything that happens, there is a decision. Yes. Robert Frost said that two roads diverged in a single wood, and I chose the one less traveled by. So what happens is you have a decision to make. You can take, here's an example. If you walk into a department store, let's say Macy's or something, and the first thing you do when you find a shirt that you want, if you look at the price tag, now I did hear that this is a barometer of where your mind is. If you look at the price tag, then that means you are concerned about the price and whether I can afford it, right? So the challenge is to go grab that shirt, look at it, try it on, then look at the price tag. See,
that's good.
See, it's a paradigm shift, and that's where we come in as the upgraders. We like to give people that shift in paradigm. Don't always think from a scarcity mindset. Think from a affluent mindset, right? Yes. And you can begin that wherever you are. You don't have to look in the bank account and see $1 million to say, now I can start thinking a different way. No, that's not how it works. You have to see it before you see it, right? You have to think a thing before you actually see it, and you have that power. And I think that that's the dichotomy that exists between poverty mindset versus a wealth mindset. Awesome. I was thinking about a quote by Jacqueline Purcell. She says, we must unlearn the things that we have been programmed to believe since birth, because that program no longer exists if we want to live in a world where all things are possible. So I think that when we get to the point of wanting to have more, we've got to silence the voice in our mind that's telling us that we can't have. Now, that voice is probably going to come through the voice of maybe a mom or dad or a family member, or a memory, an emotional memory that you have of saying that you can't do something, right? We have to silence that voice, and we have to create a new thought process in order to move forward. Now, it's interesting that we're talking about process, because I heard, I saw it on Facebook one time. There was a post that says, do not rob people of their process. So a lot of times we want to come to
The rescue.
Yeah, we want to come to the rescue of people, right? And it goes. This can go on and on and on. But we talk about even people who need a hand up financially. You've got to say no sometimes. Period. Because what happens is you are eliminating that creative process that person needs to walk through in order to get the funds that they need.
That's good.
If you always stroke a check for somebody who needs help, you are hurting them. Don't hurt people. Allow them to walk through that process, because in that process is where you're going to learn how to walk in your own power. No one is you, and that's your power. You're going to learn how to do that. A child is learning how to walk, falls down 50 times, and they never say, "This is not for me."
That's right.
They never do that.
They don't.
So the child, in the process of walking, they get up, they fall. Our niece now, Talia, is learning how to walk. And we saw a video yesterday of her getting up, falling down, getting up, falling down. Well, never did she say, "I'm done. I just won't walk." No, she didn't do that. Don't rob people of the process. They have to walk through their own process. And when they come out on the other side, they're going to look back and say, I knew that was for me. I needed to go through that.
And look, and as I listen to you talk about that, this is what comes to mind. She never says, "This is not for me," and her parents don't say, "This is not for her."
Yeah, that's good.
So it's happening on both sides where we realize it's a process. So it is good. We have to really come to understand that as people are going through their own processes, we don't want to be ones that basically stall them, stop them, We don't want to be that type of person. And I as you were talking, I literally just kind of saw this. Can you imagine where you're in a place and you're like, "I want to come out of this place," and I saw like a jail cell. So think about being in a jail cell or cage, and then I walk up to you with the key, and I unlock the key and let you out, only to put you in another one. I mean, what good does that do? Mm-hmm. Now it's a new environment, this going on, but I'm still locked up. Oftentimes, that's what happens when we reach out to try to help people. All we're doing is just keeping them bound. I may have made something feel good for the moment, because think about that. I step out of the cage and I'm right here in the middle, and I'm free for just a little bit, but I step right back into something else. Mm-hmm. So what is it that we can do? How can we really help a person? There's an impartation that would take place by us talking, sharing, giving information, and allowing people to basically do what? Take note of it, receive it, and then implement what it is that they're learning. That right there is the best lesson, and that's what I had to go through.
The tithe, so we get money, and then we want to hold on to it. We've been there, we've done that, right?
Trying to find ways and
Yeah.
just have somebody tell me I don't have to give it.
Yeah. Yeah, so even with the tithe, we get in church, and our pastors ask us, God asks us to tithe 10%, right? So, and then we have people who tithe 10% faithfully just without a thought process. But the poverty mindset will say, let me hold on to what I have, or let me just give a little piece of that. Well, faith says give the 10. Faith says give more.
Yeah.
See, when you expand your mind, once you free your mind, let it be shapeless and formless like water. Just let it go. Just give the 10. And hey, if you want to give 15, give 15, right? Because faith says if I do what God asks me to do willingly, with a cheerful heart, and I give it, then all things are possible. Things begin to open up. And the poverty mindset says, let me hold on to it. The wealth mindset says, I'll just be a conduit for it. So let it just flow through.
I love it.
Yeah.
When we talk about process and we talk about things that you have to go through, things that's going to happen, all of these things are preparing you for the very wealth that you would like to have. See, there's a responsibility that comes with it, even to what you were just talking about as to where my hand is open and I'm a conduit for things to go through. Mm-hmm. I'm a conduit for that wealth to just transfer through from my hand to yours. Mm-hmm. This is so necessary. Anyone that's closed up, it's like a block. Think about that. If I'm closed up, there's blockage that's happening there. But when I'm open up, I'm able to receive. This deals with relationship. So even to see that, it's a description of the type of relationship that you would have with money, with wealth, with finances. So let me say it to you even in this way, with a growth mindset. My mind had to shift. Things had to be different. How I processed information, how I perceived things, the way that I looked at it, all of those things began to change. And I realized that I had to go through some things in order to show how I would handle it. And even to be very transparent with you, think about how awesome it would be to be growing financially, and you're seeing increase happen in your life over and over again, month after month. Then all of a sudden something happens and you find yourself where it's like, it's come to a halt. Things look like they're about to decline. Well, what is your first mode of action? How do you feel? Does fear come in? Are you now feeling a bit like, oh my God, what's gonna happen? I'm afraid. That says a lot. That speaks a lot about where you are and your relationship with that money, this time, the wealth. Now, hear me even in this way. I mentioned earlier, we talked about the 3 types of people. How poor people talk about money, how rich people talk about things, how wealthy people talk about ideas. In anything that begins to happen in your life, as you begin to grow, as you begin to step out there and something comes up, what's your first response? Because with that wealth mindset, you tap into the right side of your brain. That's the creative side. So now we're talking about the creative beings. Ideas begin to come. What can I do? How can I solve this problem? What action steps can I take? And it's a different type of vibe. Just this morning, I'm sitting there, we're watching the news, I'm thinking, I was reading a devotional, my husband comes in after taking the children to the bus stop, and I begin to give him ideas. I said I was thinking about something, and I began to just lay it out to him, and I was laying one thing after another, and then I said, and if that's true, think about this over here, and I laid some more on him. But this is what really blessed me. Because my husband, he looked at me. He said, that energy right there. And he talked about, I want you to speak about that, because I love the way that you even said it. Because he challenged me, he let me know. He said, there's something Bob Proctor would talk about that they would have had around me in that moment. And because of the energy that I was putting off, the color of it would have been something specific, a particular color, because of where I was. How often do you step into this? But tell him about what you were saying.
So Tonya this morning was just, her whole energy was different. And I told her, that's the energy of creativity. That's the energy of wealth. You need to stay there. Because I said, I see you get into this space, and then you'll go back in another space. And when you're in the other space, you're not helping, right? But when you're here, now we can begin to discuss ideas. We can begin to discuss things that are going to help us to elevate on another level. All of you guys that are watching, have you ever been in a room and somebody walked in and the whole energy just shifted? And you're like, oh man, something feels different here. Yeah. Where that person's energy is just literally sucking the life out of that room. Well, what happens is we have this energy glow that's around us. And you can pick it up on, I don't know what kind of thing it is, listening to Bob Proctor, but you can look around the energy field of people and they radiate how they're feeling.
That's true.
Right? So there's optimism. You're walking in optimism and creative ideas and right side brain thinking, creative things. It just begins to pop. And when you're in the right room, that's why masterminds are so powerful. You get with other people that can elevate your level of thinking, and everybody's popping on the same level. I studied years ago with Les Brown and Paul Martinelli, and we were out in California. And Paul said, doesn't it feel good? It was about 40 of us in the room. He said, doesn't it feel good that we're all operating on the same level? Everybody's thinking, everybody's discussing ideas. And this morning, that's where she was. And I just took my time and enjoyed it. And that's where we need to stay, because that's where the answers are. Yeah. That's where the answers are for you also, that creative mindset. This is the Upgraders talking to you about faith and finances.
The Upgraders.